Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Salt and Burn. This is a Supernatural Rewatch podcast. My name is Sammy.
I'm Valerie.
Thanks for joining us yet again.
Sammy, I'm so tired.
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm pretty tired too.
I wanted to call you as soon as I was done with this episode, because I wanted to give you a heads up that I just wanted to say so much meta.
Yes, it's
So much meta.
exactly what I was going to. That was going to be my alternate description of the show. It's like
The name of the show should have been called either So Much Meta or Dean Eats His Way Through an Episode.
Yeah, no kidding.
So thick with meta that I got to the point where I said, I can't actually say everything. I can't make a comment on every single piece of it, because my comments would be longer than not only the episode, but longer than the episode plus our podcast.
Oh, sure. So, like, if we get it out of the way, I just want to say several times throughout the episode, they, first but not most importantly, there's so many call outs to movies that actually exist, but those actors that they're talking to do not exist in them, or their characters don't exist in them.
Right. That's kind of like me saying, Sammy, that part you did in Evil Dead 2?
Yeah.
Evil Dead exists, but Sammy did not.
No.
At least not in Evil Dead 2.
Right. And then we have like all of these internal inside jokes.
Oh. So many.
Just basically making fun of the bigger names of the Supernatural production team, which was hilarious.
Right.
Like, and I don't know if you can see it. I can't really show on
just tell me.
audio platform. But usually I just write notes like a normal person. But here I had like the separate column for any time like a movie was mentioned or an internal call out was made. Because I was like, there's going to be so many in here.
So many.
That I just want to make like a separate little space for it instead of writing in.
Oh, good for you. Because I ended up writing it and then like underlining it 3 times and making a square around it. Anything to call it out to my own brain.
Yeah.
I went through a lot of lead. I went through a lot of lead in my pencil on this one. I mean, I loved it. I'm not complaining. But this should have been an episode that we watched together and then commented on it as it went, because we could have just been rolling with it like, look at that, or they just said, this would have been that episode.
Yeah, but also afterward we'd have been like, oh my god, we missed so much stuff.
right. So in advance, I'm going to apologize, only that we will not have time to hit every cool thing about this episode.
No,
every fun moment, we won't be able to talk about it.
No, but I do enjoy that this is like a precursor to, spoiler alert, one of the more famous episodes that they did, which I think was called The French Mistake.
Yes.
This is like a precursor to it. When I first watched this, or like any time before I watched in this instance, I would not have paid attention because, it would have been like, oh, McGee, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
Or I wouldn't really have listened to the Gilmore Girls reference.
Right.
Or, anything like that. It would not really have meant as much to me.
Yeah. The randomness of this episode, if you had just watched Supernatural for the first or second or even third time, it would have just read as what it was.
Yeah.
They went to Hollywood and, did search for ghosts on a movie set. That's what the episode would have been. Knowing what we know about the show and the characters and the writers, because we're completely immersed in it, going back and watching it is like, oh my gosh. It's kind of like, you watched cartoons as a kid and then you go and watch cartoons now with kids and you realize how adult the humor actually is.
Yeah.
Genius. It's written for dual purposes.
Totally. The guy who wrote it, Ben Udland, I think this was like something brewing in his mind for a while. Like he wanted to write something like this, not necessarily Supernatural. Just once he became like
able to do things like this,
able to do things, or even just interested, walking his way into the world. He's like, I want to write an episode or a movie that's meta like this, but I have no idea what these people actually do. Meaning like writers
Oh.
and producers and studio executives, it's just like I could
Right.
do it, but it would not be correct. But now that he's
Right.
been in the world, he's like, okay, now I know what to do.
Now I know. Now I know. That's like whenever I watch a TV show and the episode takes place on a stage, like a theater stage, you will
Uh,
always notice like an A-frame ladder on the stage and a
yep.
random single light on stage because that's all people think theater is.
Yeah.
That's all they know. That's all those writers knew when placing this episode in a theater
Yeah.
is that there'd be an A-frame ladder on stage
Yeah.
and there's a random ghost light. And it irks me to no end. But for those of you who now want to start watching TV episodes that take place in a theater, look for a ladder. Every time
Yeah.
there's a stage.
Although
there's
there
a
is
ladder.
usually a ladder around on a stage.
Right. But it's always open and on stage. It's not just like a folded
Yeah.
ladder leaning in the
Yeah,
wings.
yeah.
It's a
Yep.
I have to send you one of my favorite pictures of me backstage at USC. I am literally surrounded by ladders. It's like the most ladders you've ever seen in your life, and they are all just gathered in the spot where I was calling the show from. I was
Yeah.
like, what the actual? Like anytime I turned around, someone would have opened a ladder, and so I would have
Yeah.
to duck under a ladder to go
Oh,
somewhere. I'm like,
no.
what are you doing?
It's so much bad luck.
Explains a lot.
Season 2, Episode 18, Hollywood Babylon. The Ghosts Go West. A filmmaker fakes a supernatural soundstage death to create online buzz for his in-production horror flick. But the second death is all too real. Written by Ben Udland and directed by Phil Screecha.
So I want to start out by saying A, super fun episode. B, the title, Hollywood Babylon. I was like, what does this mean? Roadkill, pretty easy to figure out.
Yeah. Right.
So
Right.
I looked up Hollywood Babylon. It's a book. It's a book that was released, I want to say in the 60s, about very salacious details of Hollywood stars and starlets between the 1900s and the 1950s. And it's basically all tabloid. It had gruesome pictures of like Jane Mansfield's death. It had other people's suicide pictures in there. It was banned because of just how not only was it salacious, but it was also not very correct. The writer of the book actually said that he divined a lot of his information through mental telepathy. So he wrote these stories about these events and about these Hollywood people's lives because he divined it through mental telepathy. So Hollywood Babylon, basically the salacious, underbelly of.
Oh, that's funny. Because one of my favorite podcasts and one of the first podcasts I ever tuned into is called Hollywood Babylon, but it's like babble, like you're talking a lot, babble on,
Gotcha.
like you're just
On.
babbling on. And that's hosted by Kevin Smith and Ralph Garman. And they just talk like pop culture news. And it's also salacious, but in like raunchy guy humor type of way,
Right.
A lot of dick and fart jokes, not murder and suicide.
Not photos
created
of
from mental
people's.
telepathy. Yes.
Yes. Although it also published this book. Also, I just wanted to point out that published the photo of the murder scene of the Black Dahlia, which was a huge
I've heard of that one.
intrigue, whodunit, unsolved murder that happened in Hollywood. But he published the photos of her murder scene, which you're not supposed to do.
Right.
So the opening.
Yeah.
Montage opening sequence. No, was there a recap? I didn't see one.
No recap.
Jumps right into what you're assuming is like a cold opening of the horror scenes that Supernatural has done. Girl in the woods looking, lost, calling for her friends. And I just want to point out from the very get-go, I was like, nope.
Yep.
Not real. The lighting and just the scenic was just off enough for me.
Yeah.
That it wasn't Supernatural.
Yeah,
it wasn't
it definitely
the
looks
regular.
like fake woods.
Yes, exactly. And so we're still buying though that this girl is lost in the woods. She calls for her friends. There's a fake kind of jump scare moment where her friend jumps out. Is like, hey, we're here, but look, someone's here. we're missing all the rest of our friends. We can't find them, but we have to get out of here. And the girl's like, no, wait, we have to go over here. And the guy's like, no, I'm leaving. Guy leaves, girl stranded in the woods.
Yes. She also
as
calls him a
guys do.
son of a bitch, which I thought was a cute little.
Yes. And so now she's lost in the woods and she's kind of looking around, still kind of half-heartedly calling people's names.
Mhm.
Hears the sound, turns, camera zooms in, and she's got this look of terror on her face, and she does a big inhale for the big, girl scream, and does like the worst scream.
Oh my
She's just like,
Ah, ah, ah,
ah. And then you
ah.
hear cut. And what I loved about this scene was not only does she know she did a bad job with the
Yeah.
screen, but you actually see the camera operator and like the focus puller who are in shot with her, looking at her like, is that what you're gonna do?
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
screen you're giving us.
That's your choice. All right.
Yeah. So now, now everything pulls back and you are clearly on a movie set, on a sound stage. Everybody's resetting, to do another take of this terrible scream.
Mhm.
And the director is like, yeah, that was good, but not, what can I do to help you? And the actress who had the terrible scream says, I'm just not feeling it,
Yeah.
and the director like misinterprets what she's saying. He's like, oh, don't worry. It's there's going to be CG. It's going to be, the monster you're supposedly looking at is going to be super scary. Do you want to walk through it again? Do you want to look at the pictures that we have, the
Yeah.
sketches that we have? She's like, no, I'm just not, it's not there for me yet.
Yeah.
And the director does his best to kind of placate her just to get her back on track.
Yes. So the actor playing this director, his name is Reagan Burns, and he's in pretty much every commercial that's ever been made ever.
Yep. He is like the workingest guy out there. You've
Yes.
seen him everywhere.
Yes. But he was also on this show that didn't last very long, but was very funny and had a ton of huge names in it. And I think it was called Halfway House or something on Comedy Central.
Oh.
Octavia Spencer was in it. Oscar, is his last name Nunez? The guy who plays Oscar on The Office, and also just like
Oh, okay.
kind of he shows up everywhere. There's tons of huge names in that show that just disappeared, and I'm not sure why. It was very funny, but that's where I first saw that guy. And whenever I see him in every commercial ever made, I'm like, oh, Halfway House guy.
I was just going to say he's been on everything except Psych and Stargate. So
Yeah. That's why you didn't write anything down.
that's why I didn't write anything down. He wasn't on my shows. But no, he's great. He's just that face that you see everywhere.
Yes.
And I love that he's playing McG, the director, who's also
Yeah.
obviously director of Supernatural.
She
go
goes to
ahead.
sit down. Yeah, she goes to sit down in her little director chair with her fellow actor, and then there's like this really creepy looking crew guy who has like long
Yeah.
stringy hair. And he's just going like, "Man, this is kind of creepy, huh?" Yeah. What does he say?
The set kind of
Like,
gives me the creeps. It always
Oh,
feels like
yeah.
there's somebody
Yeah.
watching you.
strange things are happening, man.
Yeah.
And he just walks away. The actors kind of laugh at him.
But I know
Uh,
this guy on every set I've ever worked on. This stagehand exists,
He
just so you know.
does. Yes.
Absolutely. It's not every stagehand, but this guy exists.
There's one in
on-
every stage crew. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I also love that while everybody's resetting, there's an assistant director who's yelling on set, like, all right, everybody, we got to reset, take it from the top, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
She's yelling this for the entire crew to hear, which is basically my job as well.
Uh-huh.
Except she's yelling into a mic, like into a headset mic, like a walkie
Yeah.
mic.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel bad for everybody on her headset because not only is she yelling to the studio, she's yelling into this mic. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
don't
I
do
wondered
that.
if that was like a really inside joke, because they did such like a massive close up to her and like had
Yeah.
like basically a spotlight on her, but
Yeah, twice they do it for her.
yeah, so she must be, I don't know, because I couldn't find her like really. She wasn't anybody on IMDb, maybe this was like for the crew being like, oh, haha, this is so and so, this is how you
right.
act or something like that.
Right, maybe.
So the main actress, she's off in the corner, practicing her scream, and it's just as terrible. One
Just
practice
bad.
scream after the other. It's just like, oh man, no wonder she's in this B movie.
But she knows it. That's the other thing. She's just like, I'm
Yeah,
not getting it. This is
yeah,
bad.
yeah. I hate this
I'm doing
so
bad.
much.
But in between screams, she's just kind of, talking to herself a little bit, and she hears something, because she's wandered off onto the set. So she's like by herself. She needs some alone time on the set. So she's kind of in the trees, and she hears something and looks up and sees hanging from the grid now the electrician guy, that creepy crew guy who was just talking to her about creepy things happening, is now hanging upside down, dripping blood, with a ghost standing over him.
Yes.
And then she screams.
Yes. A good one. A good one, as the director
scream.
notes. It's like, yes.
So her real scream at seeing a dead man hanging from the rafters
Right.
is like the take they should have used.
Right.
Still kind of a weird scream. Just gonna say.
All right. So title splash, and then when the episode starts, the brothers are in Hollywood. It's that kind of typical like Hollywood studio thing where
Backlot tour. Yeah.
Yes, so they're on the backlot tour. Dean's very excited. Here's the one of the first meta call outs is the tour guide says something like, "This is where they shot Gilmore Girls, and maybe if we're lucky, we'll see one of the stars." Zoom in on Sam.
Right onto Jared Padalecki's face.
Yes, who then makes it look like, ruh-roh. We gotta go.
And he does. He jumps off the tram.
Yes.
He jumps. He's like, whoop, jumps off. In the meantime, Dean is like fanning. He is like fangirling about being on these backlot studios. He is having such a good time because like he's looking for the stars. As the tour guide is saying, you might see this star and you might see that star. Dean's like, he's looking. He wants to see it. One of the things the tour guide called out was that this is where they used to film Lois and Clark.
Yeah.
The Adventures of Superman. I used to love that show, for one thing.
I did too.
I even got
actually.
my hair. I got my hair cut like Terry Hatcher's when she cut her hair into that straight bob. That's how much I love that show. I didn't know that Kripke worked on that show.
Yeah.
Yep. Am I lying to you? No, it's not Kripke. It was Robert Singer. I totally lied to your
Robert
face.
Singer. I was looking for Jared and Jensen to see like who was, if they either of them were on the show, because I knew it was something.
Yeah,
I knew there was a reason they mentioned it.
It was a call out to Bobby.
But
I was like, yeah, I used to love that show.
They also mentioned a movie or a show called Creep Show, which I could not find any.
Oh, it's a real show. It was a really bad.
Real show, but I didn't. I thought maybe it's like, was somebody on that? Did somebody write on that? Couldn't really find, or I didn't dig hard enough. At some point, I was just like, this is going to take forever. If I have to do this for everything.
Everything that comes out of Dean's mouth, we have to look up. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Although this one was funny because Dean is saying like, man, we thought we were going to be on vacation, swimming pools and movie stars.
Right, Beverly Hillbillies.
And Sam says, does this seem like swimming weather to you? It's practically Canadian. Which made me laugh and think of you because I did not know for the longest time that this was shot in Vancouver. Oh. And one of the first things you talked about when we watched the show together was just like, no, of course it's Vancouver. It's raining all the time.
Oh man. But I love that they're doing this amazing walk and talk. You know how much I love their walk and talks. Mm-hmm. This one is a really good one because it's taking them down this, alleyway between the sound stages. And as they're walking down this alleyway, they're passing by like your typical movie set things that we would expect to see on a movie set, Spartans in costumes, and there's a horse, and there's a guy, there's an astronaut being wheeled, on a dolly cart down, to another soundstage. And so they're surrounded by, the trappings of their jobs, of Jensen and Jared's jobs, while talking about their supernatural lives, which I thought was a cool juxtaposition. Yeah. It was also just a refreshing, walk and talk. I don't know how to say it. I just enjoyed just the two of them having their talks. They were connecting.
But it's also, this whole episode is refreshing from Heart and Roadkill.
Yeah.
I mean, Heart was like the saddest thing
Oh,
ever. And
right.
now here it's just like
Right. It even had
like
that
that's
chirpy
kind of
little
like the
music in the background too. Yeah. And it's funny because like Dean's energy kind of matched that. He was,
yeah,
he was very childlike in this episode. And I don't mean immature. I just mean his wonderment.
yeah,
They're so saturated by the supernatural and evil that being on a film set surrounded by the fun of what you grew up watching, it just had
right,
him like literally with that boop 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 boop
yes,
boop, in his step. But so while they're walking and talking, they're describing they're talking about the case, what
yeah,
brought them out here. And it's not swimming pools and Hollywood stars, it's a ghost. This guy, this electrician who was killed on set, and that somebody saw a ghost when they saw
yeah,
his body.
yeah.
And Dean goes automatically to, oh, that sounds like Poltergeist. And
Mm-hmm.
Sam is like, yeah, it could be a poltergeist. And Dean says, no, 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 the movie Poltergeist. And I love this is, again, one of my favorite quotes. Dean says, you know nothing of your cultural heritage to Sam. And which is true because it's a movie with the, Poltergeist is Poltergeist, but also that Poltergeist has its own urban legends about it.
Yes,
And
I
I
was
remember.
personally offended by that also, I have to say.
Oh, that Sam didn't know.
No, because like I also haven't seen Poltergeist, and
Oh.
it's like there's some amongst many
Well,
of the other movies that I have not seen.
so, but it's not necessarily the movie itself. It's the
Yeah,
urban
yeah, yeah.
legend base. Okay. So I'll just put this out there. There's a lot of skeletons in Poltergeist. And so the urban legend is that the movie set was haunted because the props people used real skeletons instead of prop skeletons. And so that the ghosts and souls of people attached to these skeletons were haunting the set. And people did die. The little girl who plays the little girl had a terrible illness. I think she had
God.
some sort of liver disease or something, which I'm sure all circumstantial and nothing to do with the set being cursed. But that's just one of those call outs, the crossover between supernatural lives and television.
Yeah, sure.
And so they since they don't know who the guy who died was, they said, well, let's go find the girl who saw the body and the ghost.
Yes, yes. And her name is Tara Benchley, who happens to be in Fear.com and Ghost Ship. She's not in either of those.
We looked it up because we're fools.
Well, I actually have seen, I don't think I saw all of it, but I did see Ghost Ship. Terrible movie. I do not suggest it. I think I only saw like the first half hour or maybe 45 minutes, and I was like,
Done.
not even worth my time. But anyway, Dean knows who she is, very excited at the prospect of meeting her, so now he's all of a sudden interested in this case.
Right. And
I mean,
Sam
he was
notices
slightly
that.
interested, but yes, because Sam was just like, no, I need to work to keep my mind off of Madison. And he's like, all right, fine. Wait, Tara Benchley? Yes, let's go.
Yes. Like you could see his ears perk up,
Yeah, exactly.
Cut to on the soundstage. You've got the directors being talked to by a producer or a suit guy.
A studio executive, I think, is what he was supposed to be.
Studio. Yeah, so not part of the production team.
Yeah,
he's one of the money studio people who, these people drive me crazy. They know nothing about production, but yet they insert their opinions into everything because they have no artistic training, no artistic background. They are just money people, I guess.
Right.
But this guy is talking about he's talking to McGee saying, well, it could be a little bit brighter, which of course has been said about Supernatural. I think they got called out for it on
they
the
pulled
CW.
all of the studio executives' lines from questions that they have been asked in this past, like since they started the show.
Oh, stop. Did they really? I knew that one of them was in an article that was I knew one of them, this particular one, was a quote that it could be brighter, which I also find hysterical because I do brighten our gifts before I publish them.
Those are pulled from real life inspiration. And then I also, when they sent the test screening to the executives, they're like, okay, we know that you're making fun of us, but we totally laughed our asses off.
Now that's comedy.
Yeah.
That's funny. So the guy who plays the suit, the studio executive, is Gary Cole.
Yeah. Huge guy.
Huge, but all I could see, because for me, his biggest movie was Office Space.
Oh yeah, and he plays kind of that guy in everything
Exact
that he's
same guy.
in.
Exact same guy. So
He's
all I
made
could
it.
see, I just
He's made a
wanted him to
great career
say,
playing that guy.
playing that semi douche guy who thinks he's a good guy.
Yeah.
But the fact that he didn't say, "I need to talk to you about those TPS reports," I was like a little disappointed.
I know.
But he was great. He played the douche guy to a T. But so he's making his suggestions to the director about how the show should look.
Yes.
And that's when Dean and Sam walk onto set.
Yeah. And he spots them as, or clocks them, I should say, as PAs and says, hey, you guys over there, go get me a smoothie from Craft Services.
Crafty.
And they're like,
a Woody from Hooey?
Yeah.
Which, Crafty is short for Craft Services. Craft Services is the organization that supplies food and drink to people on set, because you can't always leave the studio on meal breaks. You don't have time, or, so there's always food. There's always Crafty. They just call it Crafty instead of Craft Services, which I thought was funny that Dean didn't get that, because Dean says like a Woody from Hooey. And I would have thought that with Dean's love of all things TV and movies, that he would have been hip to what was being asked of him, even though if he, you know what I mean? But then another part of me thought that's really sad that someone who loves TV and movies so much spent his childhood chasing ghosts and killing things and stuff like that, that he missed out on that little piece of growing up, which is like being able to be excited about how films are made or how TV is done. And
Valerie, today's the first day that I've ever heard anyone call Craft Services crafty. I did not
That's what
know
you
that.
get from all of this?
Well, because you're saying like, oh, this guy loves movies. How would he not know what the Craft Services are shortened to crafty? I've never heard that before. He's lived in hotels his whole life. Why would he care?
I know that, but that's what I'm. But I mean, okay. Well, that was the flip side of what I said, which is maybe because he, it's a sad thing about his childhood is that he never had the time to get to experience the fun part of learning about TV and movies. All right, I take for granted sometimes my experiences that not everybody has had them.
So he does end up getting a smoothie, a slew of smoothies. It's like passing them off to people. And then takes that opportunity to kind of sneak away to look for clues. And all of a sudden the lights go out because they're ready to shoot. And I just loved this look of like confusion or surprise or like deer in the headlights kind of look that Dean does. Like when he's on the stairs, he's like, what's happening? What's happening?
Why'd the lights go out?
Yeah.
That was pretty cute.
Anyway, someone calls for, I assume that the same AD from before calls for lights and silence for scene 666. I don't know if you noticed that. On the what is that called? The strike.
It's a slate.
Slate.
Yeah. Well, also on the slate was McGee's name.
Yeah.
And also Serge L, who is Serge Leduce. I may be saying his name wrong. Who's the director of photography on Supernatural. So his name was on the slate too, as Serge L.
Very nice.
So little call outs there. Yeah.
So the scene that they're shooting is like a Latin incantation of that main actress girl, Tara. And while she's doing that, Dean is up above on the grid. He's got his little EMF meter out, looking, nothing.
He doesn't find EMF, but he certainly found his love of crafty.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
But he's not wrong, though. Now here's the thing. Anytime I was on a film set, the food they had was amazing, which at first I thought that they were overdoing it with how much food was out and what kind of food was out. But I mean, even backstage at the opera, we've got a popcorn machine, So, but thanks to COVID, we don't. Wear your mask. Yeah. So Dean's now falling a little bit in love with production life as a PA.
Right.
So they and Sam can't find anything. While Dean didn't find any EMF, Sam can't find any information about the electrician guy. But what he does find out is that 4 people have died over over a period of 8 years, I think, on the sound studio. 2 were suicides and 2 were fatal accidents. And so now they're thinking, oh, vengeful spirit.
Yes.
This could
But
be a
before they can get much further than that, Dean spots Tara sitting alone in the corner. Oh boy,
decides to
Horn Dog Dean is
pump.
back.
Yep, decides to pump her for information.
Yes.
But he it's funny, he goes over there to Tara and he's still kind of fangirling. I mean,
Oh, that's what I said. Like at first I wrote Horn Dog Dean spots Tara, and then I said, well, maybe he's actually more just of a fanboy. Like
yeah,
this nervousness is legitimate and not him
that's
playing a part. Or,
yeah, he
to
didn't have the swagger,
no.
He was just like, hey, this is my chance.
Yeah. Yep.
And while he's talking to her, he has this like kind of, I don't want to say that puppy dog edge that Sam usually has, but he kind of starts in with the bedside manner, which is, so were you the one who saw the guy? That must have been really rough. That must have been bad. And then when she says, yeah, I don't, people are afraid I'm going to break if I talk about it. And he gets her to start talking about it.
Yeah.
And not in the usual Dean, how much blood was there? What, how did I, it was just talking to her.
It was a very smart segue. I have to give him props for it.
Yeah. And so while he's asking about him, she's like, well, I don't know much about him, but I have a photo of him. And, Dean's like, you have photos? She's like, oh yeah, I take Polaroids of, of folks of the crew and stuff when we're in between takes just to kind of kill the time, which I didn't know this, but that's what Jensen used to do. He used to take pictures of the crew and stuff in between takes. So he was known for doing stuff like that.
Oh, that's
so a little
sweet.
call out to Jensen on the show. So when Tara finds a picture of her and the electrician guy, Dean recognizes the guy.
Immediately. Son of a bitch, I think he says.
Bitch. Yep.
He also mentioned, this is another meta thing, just very quickly. When he first approaches Tara, he says, I love your work in Boogeyman.
Oh, I can't believe I didn't mention that. Yes, go ahead.
Which was a movie that Eric Kripke wrote. He's not very proud of it, although he did like 3 of them. So.
Oh, right. Well, you got to put food on the table,
Right. Do what you got to do.
Yeah, that's right. Because even Tara says, "Yeah, that was such a bad script."
Yeah.
Oh, that's too funny. That one I loved, and I can't believe I didn't say it. Sam and Dean go, since Dean knows who this guy was in the photo, they track down his name and they track down where he lives. And it turns out he's an actor. And Dean has seen him in a whole string of bad B movies.
Yes. Metal Storm, At the Destruction of Jared's Sin, and Critters 3.
Now, I knew Critters 3 was a movie. I didn't know the other ones.
Neither of them.
I also love that they call out Richard Mall as an actor.
Yeah.
They asked this guy, or Dean asked him, what was it like working with Richard Mall? And Richard Mall was like the tall, bald guy on Night Court.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Richard Mall exists as an actor in that movie, but not this guy that they're talking to.
Right.
But anyway, he invites him in, and then he tells him, "It's like, oh yeah, the executives hired me to like fake my death to create some online buzz. I'm gonna be the new lonely girl," which at the time was like a huge deal because she was like a vlogger who then ended up dead, but then it turned out to be fake. It was a whole thing. Much like this guy, although probably not to the same effect. No. And he also says like, oh, the ghost was created by like a projection, like behind me, like on a screen. And then he invites them to a dinner theater production that he's in of
Death of a Salesman.
That's so like an actor. It's so like an actor thing to do.
But that's also so very LA that like if you show up, you'll get a free steak or something, like anything to get you to come see these shows. Because theater in LA is not the best, but it's what people do to get noticed. So you'll take the small roles in these 15-seat theaters.
Yeah.
Just to get on your resume and to get people to come out and see you for your resume. Oh, LA.
No kidding. Okay, so now the boys are back on set.
And so is the deer head.
Yes, I saw that. It's like the first shot, right? Back when they're in the cabin.
Yep. And of course, since we're back on set and I've mentioned the deer head, I also want to point out everything else on this soundstage set is from Supernatural episodes.
Yeah, I would assume so. I didn't pay too much attention, but it was just like, this feels familiar.
The cabin that they were just in, is from Roadkill. It's that guy's cabin. That derrick that was like in the woods, that wooden structure. That was from, I don't know what it was. There's also that water tower, all of that is all from Supernatural episodes that we've already seen.
And there's more Supernatural stuff too that comes in.
Yeah.
So they're shooting the scene, but they can't use it because there is sound feedback, which that will come back later. The studio executive, the suit, as they've been calling him, is there still. And you know what? This is an annoying question, but it's also a valid question, because he's like, these rules don't really track, because how would the demons be able to hear their Latin chanting?
Right. They're down in hell. How does, the whole logic tracking isn't tracking. Yeah. And of course, it's the suit who has to point it out. There's no just go with it. I'm always saying, Valerie, it's a TV show. Go with it. Yeah. He can't go with it. He's like, I need to know. And they're like, we'll put in an explainer. An
explainer. And they calls out to some guy named Martin who says like, yeah, okay, we'll throw out an explainer. This explainer turns out to be demons have super hearing. Like that's the explainer they use.
That's how they did it. But in the middle of that, the suit guy gets a phone call and walks off to go, talk to somebody. So he walks somewhere else on set. And is trying to get his phone and his Bluetooth to work. He's got one of those giant Bluetooth wrap around your ear. Yeah. Which we all had.
Those were pretty sleek back in 2006.
Yeah, especially if you kept them in your ear even when you weren't talking on the phone. Yeah. So while he's trying to get his phone to work, he sees this woman, looks like all black and white. She's mostly white. She looks like she is black and white.
Yes, like from a black and white movie or picture or something. Her skin is, her hair, everything is completely desaturated.
Yes.
Black and white. And he even kind of comments on it. He's just like, oh, this makeup is pretty good, except for this neck wound. That's not going to read on camera, because shouldn't it be red? Because it should be blood.
Right. And she doesn't say anything. And he turns to go back to his phone, and he's like, he does a voice memo. He's like, I got to call so-and-so about the makeup department, Mm-hmm. And then this girl comes up behind him and taps him on the shoulder, like, no, not done with you yet. Doesn't say anything. And she very slowly and seductively unties her robe and lets it fall to the ground. And I'm assuming she's naked.
One would assume from his reaction.
Yes. And then turns and walks up the same steps that Dean was just on earlier when he was doing his EMF detection, and starts to walk up the stairs very seductively. Yes. And suit guy follows.
Right.
He's like, all right.
Seems like an open invitation to me.
So next thing we see is back in the house, back in the cabin. They're filming the scene. They're doing another take. She's doing the incantation, and they're acting their little hearts out. And then suddenly, suit guy crashes through the ceiling of the cabin, dangled at the end of a rope, and he's thrashing and poof, and dies in the middle of their scene. And everyone is horrified.
Yeah, screaming, good screams.
Screaming for real. Yes.
Yeah.
And the last thing we see while this guy is kind of dangling and swinging is the little Bluetooth earpiece falls onto the ground.
Yeah.
End of scene.
End of scene. But then the next scene, they're still just shooting the scene. Totally did not
cleared the body.
Them. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
To shoot.
I was like, still filming in the same. Not only are they still filming in the exact same location, they didn't move on to another scene somewhere else. Yeah. No. Yeah. And so it was McG mentioned it.
Even the producers mentioned it, and from behind. Well, McG I think is playing the director,
McG said,
and then there are two. No, there are two guys behind. There's
Jay
and Martin, I think. But they're just like, should we stop? And then the other guy's like, we had a moment of silence at breakfast. It's fine.
Let's go. So no one really upset that this guy is gone.
Yeah.
But I think I'd still be a little ooged out by, the whole dead body.
I don't know if I could continue, and I think that I would do what Tara did, which was just like, hey, can we
cut?
Can we cut?
McG says I'm the one who says cut.
Yeah.
He says it offhandedly, but But when she says, "Hey, can we cut?" Somebody says, "Okay, cut." Dean then inserts himself and is like, "That's a cut."
Oh, he has fit right in. He's got himself a headset. He's got himself some gear on his belt. He's shoving taquitos into his face.
Oh my
He's
gosh.
like having the time of his life. Good for him.
Oh my God. But the whole reason she stopped
He's
again,
cute.
not because there was somebody dead in the room, not because she got flashlighted in the face. It's because she doesn't understand why salt would be called for to help protect them from ghosts.
Yep.
Because in that scene, she's saying, okay, the ghosts are coming. We should get some salt. I read somewhere that salt keeps ghosts away. And that's when she's like, why salt? That sounds stupid. Why would ghosts be afraid of salt? So another logic, another logic block. And it's, what I think is funny is that she has an issue with it, but me watching Supernatural never questioned it.
I didn't
never
either, but
questioned
it was
it.
also because I grew up watching Hocus Pocus, like I mentioned before in the episode where they did like give the salt lecture, the
Right.
salt lesson, because
Right.
in Hocus Pocus, which was made in the 90s, they used like they pulled like that cylinder of salt that every household has of Morton salt,
Uh-huh.
and they used that to like keep the witches away.
Oh.
And I don't remember. I think it was the talking cat, that said something about it. But anyway, so
That's too funny. I just
from a
thought
young
that,
age, I just accepted. Yeah, salt.
right.
Salt keeps evil
Oh,
away.
yeah. I don't know why I accepted it. I just accepted it as, well, on the show, that's what it is. That's what they told us it is. So it is. You know
Yep.
what I mean? I never questioned it.
Yep.
I also, did you notice that Dean was also wearing, by the way, a Hellhazzers t-shirt?
Oh no, I didn't.
He was wearing a production t-shirt. So not only did he have on the headset and the work belt, he also was wearing a Hellhazzers
Very
crew
funny.
shirt.
Very funny.
But
then the producers and scriptwriters, they have a conversation. Okay, maybe shotguns. Well, that makes even less sense than salt. And if you had your subtitles on or had earphones in, you could hear in the background as the main scene keeps going. It's like, well, did we want to stick with condiments? Maybe paprika or picante. It was very funny. And like they keep cutting to like Dean for reactions, and he's just like smirking, like,
Yeah.
amateurs.
Well, when they say shotgun, and that guy's like, no, that's even dumber. It's like, well, didn't Evil Dead use shotgun and a chainsaw to kill?
Yep.
And not to mention Dean and Sam using, a shotgun with salt in it. So like a double whammy there.
Yeah.
So while they're having that discussion and Dean's kind of rolling his eyes, he's really enjoying his taquitos though. Sam comes up having just spent time in the morgue. One of my favorite lines, Dean says, taquito? Just one of my favorites. Anytime if I see taquitos in the store or a taquito cart or whatever, I go, taquito. Taquitos are delicious. So Sam went to the morgue to check on Suit Guy, and it turns out Suit Guy actually is dead. He wasn't an actor playing dead. He was dead.
Dead.
And while he's talking to Dean about all this, Dean is actually carrying on a conversation on headset, but Sam doesn't know this.
He's like doing his job as a PA.
Right. He's totally like answering questions and relaying information. And
doing the
Sam
radio speak, like 10-4 copy or whatever the fuck the language is.
Sam is like, what? I have to say though, that's a huge part of my life is people not realizing that even though you're wearing a headset, that there's somebody talking to you on headset that you not on headset can't hear. And so I'm constantly having to either put my hand up or point to my headset and say, wait, I'm talking to somebody or somebody's talking to me. It's usually though, so that I can give myself time to turn off my mic so that the people on headset don't hear what's being said to me.
Yeah.
That's what I always have to be careful of, is that somebody will come up to me and start speaking loud right into my mic. And that means everybody on headset hears it.
Yeah.
So, my life. So
Dean's
in the meantime,
Dean's pretty good as a PA. Like he's like fitting right in.
He's been making friends with the crew. He's making friends with the actors. Yeah. Kind of making himself useful.
Yes,
so he goes over to the.
He shows Sam's like, hey, I found something, and makes Sam listen to one of the dailies that was shot earlier that day or yesterday, whenever it was, the one that had the sound feedback. There's like.
yeah, it blots out the sound of the actors. So you can still kind of hear the actors' dialogue, but all you hear static over it.
Also known as EVP.
EVP.
It
Yes, I
came
underlined it.
back.
Fine, it's been a while. We haven't had EVP in a while. And now Dean is finding EMF everywhere too.
Yeah.
So not only do they have EVP, now his EMF detector has been detecting supernatural activity. So there's something going on there. Later.
Well, they go off into a trailer. All I wrote was, I love the touch of the pink spike tape on Dean's belt that's like hanging off of him, like when he's walking and they do like they pull back to show a full body shot and there's like a roll of pink spike tape hanging from his belt. I was like, oh, I love that.
They did a really great job in embodying what the individual crew people are like on the set.
They did.
Because when they decide to go to, I guess, Brad, the dead guy's trailer to either look at more DVD files or something, but once they leave the soundstage and are crossing over to where the studio is, they're passed by a costume rack. You know, a wardrobe crew is like wheeling costumes to the studio. Every costume on that rack was a Dean and Sam piece of wardrobe.
Oh my God.
The shirts that they were wearing were actually on the rack.
Oh my
that
God.
went by. Yep. And that's why you kind of see Jared do just a little take and see it and then keep moving. So he does just a little nod to the costumes.
I was totally just looking at the pink spike tape that was like dangling from Jensen's belt. Did not see
I thought that was pretty great.
But no, I don't know whose trailer they went into, but Dean, because he's been making so many friends, he's just able to get a copy of all of the dailies. So now they're just going to sit and watch through them and see if they can find anything. And so Sam spots in one of the dailies like a ghosty figure or spirit in the corner of the cabin.
Yeah, it's the girl. It was the girl in the bathrobe, the black and white girl. And here's another urban legend. Dean says, "Oh my God, that's just like Three Men and a Baby," which I don't know if you're familiar with that urban legend.
Not the urban legend, but the movie, yes.
After that movie came out on VHS, people started commenting that there's a ghost in the movie. And it turns out that there's this one scene, there's a camera pans across a bunch of windows in the apartment. And you see standing behind the curtains, the figure of a little boy that doesn't match Three Men and a Little Baby at all. It doesn't match the time period. It doesn't match the scene, nothing. And it goes by so fast that, again, if you're like pressing pause on your VCR, you always got that little jump, you never had a solid pause moment. So you're staring at it, you're like, oh my gosh, what is that? So it became this big urban legend that there was a ghost on set of a little boy who had killed himself. Why the boy killed himself on set, I don't know. But it turns out it was actually just a cardboard cutout that they used when focusing lights.
Oh.
And it just got left on set, which that stuff happens all the time.
Right.
But I just love that Dean called that out as another like poltergeist, urban legend. Yeah. It's just his knowledge of films,
Right.
So back on set, Dean still totally digging being in PA. His new alias is Ozzy. He calls himself Ozzy.
Well, Sam, because he had done that earlier research, and he's been off like actually doing work while Dean is he's also doing work,
eating
but
taquitos.
Not related to he's eating taquitos. He knows, he's just like, I think that this ghost might be Elise Drummond, who is a starlet from the 30s, who was dating one of the executives, who then like used her up and like fired her, like just treated her really badly, and then she ended up killing herself.
Yeah, hanging herself on set. They decide that they need to go and dig up her grave.
Yes, I believe the exact words were, "We're digging tonight, aren't we?"
Yep. And so in the meantime, though, they've wrapped for the day. The film crew has wrapped for the day. It's been called wrap, and people are leaving the set. Jay, the producer, is doing the platitudes to McGee. Hey, no, you're my guy. You're the best. Go get him, Tiger. Was it kicking ass and taking names or whatever?
Yes, that's his phrase.
And love you, babe, type of thing.
Yep.
But a little bit later, we see that Jay is still on set or back on set but Jay is talking on the phone. So I guess the thing to do is to go find a quiet spot on set and talk on your phone.
in the fake woods, right?
And so he ends his phone call, and then, the lights are turned out more.
One other little meta thing. When he's talking on the phone to somebody, and he's like, no, McGee is an asshole. I'm going to direct the next one myself. No, you're not that way. You're kicking ass and taking names, Bob.
Bobby. Yeah. Oh, Bob. Yes, you're right. And that's when the lights go out. And he sees somebody. He's like, hey, guy, can you help me get off set? And there's no answer. And he's like, hey, I need help, and calls him a putz. I'm like, well, if I was somebody on set, I am not going to turn around and help you if you just called me a putz.
Right. Right. So pause on that for a second, because in the meantime, the brothers are wandering around a graveyard, like a Hollywood graveyard. Dean's being a total doofus because he keeps seeing things like, oh my God, this is really cool. Look at this Humpty Dumpty. That's hilarious. They find Elise Drummond's grave, dig it up, and they do the whole salt and burn process.
Salt and burn. Yep.
They salt and burn her. She's burning. Her corpse is burning.
Cut back to Jay.
Yeah, cut back to Jay. This figure is still standing there, obviously, because it's a different figure. Now that we know, like when he says, hey, putz, and he turns around, it's not the black and white starlet. It's some guy with a really, like, chopped up forehead, face.
Massive head
going
wound.
On. Yeah.
Yes. I nicknamed him Massive Head Wound Harry, which is a character from Saturday Night Live. He was the unwanted party guest who always showed up. It was like, ding dong, oh no, it's Massive Head Wound Harry. And it was this guy who just always had like this dripping wound on his head. Okay, so anyway, Head Wound Harry is now after Jay. And while Jay is running and screaming, one of the giant effects fans, like one of those fans that could blow up, those fan boats, those swamp boats in Florida, turns on, and is now these menacing blades, spinning and spinning. And Jay is now being dragged towards these blades, and he's screaming for his life. And the next thing we see is a tremendous splatter.
Yes.
Up against
26 minutes, 37 seconds is an epic blood splatter.
Yes. Onto a bounce sheet, which is what they use for lighting, to help soften.
Yeah, that just conveniently happened to be placed there.
Right.
And conveniently his blood happened to splatter on this beautiful white canvas.
Perfectly. Yes. Now my question is, how does somebody get thrown into a fan that is in a protective cage?
That was, yeah.
Because the first time you see the fan, it's something you notice on set. It's just a giant effects fan, and it's in a cage. Then the fan turns on later, kills Jay. Next time we see the fan again, it's in a cage.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know not to stick my hand inside, but
right, but a human being
body
could not fit into those things.
Yeah. So that's just my little.
Maybe this is the back of the fan and there is no cage, but I've never seen a fan like that did not also have a back of the cage to it.
Yeah.
So
a little bit of, extension of disbelief that the ghost somehow supernaturally threw him into the fan.
Right.
Okay. So anyway, Jay has now been splattered.
Yes.
Cut to the film trailer for Hellhaisers 2, The Reckoning.
Yeah.
Which is terrible. It's a terrible trailer. And it just shows it's all these clip scenes from everything we've just been watching.
Right.
Them make, but also it's interspersed with scenes from Supernatural.
Right.
From Route 666.
Yes, because they say things like from the director of, Monster Truck. Which is the truck from Route 666.
Route 666,
and
yeah.
there was another one, and
something
I didn't
from
write
the
it down in
corn.
time.
It was like Killer Corn or something. That was from Scarecrow.
Yeah. Yes. But then also Charlie's Angels and Charlie's Angels Full Throttle.
Right, which is McGee.
Throwing in those good movies in between all of these terrible movies.
Cornfield Massacre, Monster Truck.
Cornfield Massacre, that was it.
But, later Sam and Dean go to that other producer's office, and he's got all the show posters on the wall.
Uh-huh.
There was one more that was called Cannibal Carnival,
Yes.
And that was the clown one, the clown episode.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I forget which
He
episode that
also
was.
has the same poster that B-list actor that faked his own death had, which was Hollywood Polka Party the musical or something like that. He
Stop.
had,
I
yeah, that
didn't
actor,
notice that.
the death of a salesman guy had Hollywood
Yeah.
Polka Party the musical, which is not a real thing, on his wall. But then so did
So did that producer.
yeah.
Oh. I didn't know
There's so
that.
much like web
Oh
work
my
going on in this.
Who has time for that? Like, who has the brain power? So then I wonder, was it that guy who hired? It must have been that producer who hired the electrician guy actor
Because
to
of
play
that,
the electrician
yeah.
because they'd worked on that
worked
show
on that
together.
thing together.
Good catch, Sammy. You know what? Not
one I
even the
got-
fan base found that. I didn't see
What?
that anywhere. I didn't see that
Really?
mentioned anywhere.
I tried so hard not to look at like fan base stuff for this one because I really wanted to try and get it on my own.
Yep.
It was really hard,
Yep.
and I'm sure I
It
missed
was-
like a ton of stuff. But
No, you're getting most of it. So, I mean, I go back and I look after so that I'm not affected by it because I want to be surprised by the things I
Right.
see, you know?
yeah,
I want to have those moments and then be like,
Yeah.
yes, I saw it too. So now they're going back. Sam is now watching the dailies still. He's been watching like 6 hours of dailies, looking for more
Yes.
ghosts, looking for
Yes.
more images,
Yes.
listening for more EVP.
yeah. And in the
Um,
meantime, McGee has shown up, has called like a production meeting, and says, "Okay, I guess now we should close the production for a couple of days."
Oh my God.
He would
Yeah.
want us to go on. We're still gonna make this movie, but just not
We're
today.
going to make this movie. Just not today. Now this is the one time that McGee, the real McGee, is actually on set.
Oh, is he
He
in
was
the
in those
crowd?
shots. Yep. He was standing behind Dean and Sam holding the slate that had the Hellhaisers 2 on it.
Oh,
So he was in shot. Anytime Sam and Dean were in shot, he was standing behind them. So that was the real McGee.
funny.
So the set has been wrapped. They're on hiatus. But
Yes.
so Dean goes back to the trailer where Sam has been watching hours of dailies.
Right. And he also found in his off-camera research, the new ghost is named Billy Beard. He was an electrician who died on set at some point, and he was cremated. So what the
no
fuck?
body, no bones, no ghost.
No.
But while he's watching, he realizes that the Latin that Tara's been reading in these incantations is actually real.
Yet another thing to add to Sam's resume is a Latin expert.
Right. Because he went to
Latin
he went to
incantation
Stanford.
expert.
Well, he is the one who usually has to do the chanting, right? So far.
But he also didn't really know any of it before.
He was just speaking the words, that was
like
written. It's not like he understood.
On the plane, when they do the exorcism for the first time on the plane, he's just like,
I don't know.
this is just in Dad's journal. I guess I'll read it.
Yeah. But yeah, so according to Sam, these are real things that are happening. I mean, real words that are being spoken, real rituals, real spells, real summoning.
It's a necro
summoning.
necromantic
summoning ritual.
Yes.
Neither
We'll
of us
get
said it
there.
correctly. So they head off to that producer guy who has the show posters on his wall. They go to his office, and they pass by Ray's office, and they're already scraping his name off the door. Like, that's cold.
Yeah, I know.
But so they go to talk to the producer guy about the writing and be like, did you guys know that these are actual, like, who's doing this writing? This is like real stuff being, spoken. And this is the first time that I've ever heard the word Enochian.
In Supernatural, yeah.
Yeah. Well, in my life, I actually I had never heard of it until Supernatural. But even I didn't know the word Enochian until I started watching Supernatural.
Oh, okay. But you've heard it in Supernatural before.
Yes, a million times since.
Okay.
But
I was gonna be like, how did you miss
Valerie,
that?
how did you miss that? Have you seen the last 15 years of Supernatural? But it kind of struck me as like, oh, that's the first time that they've said that on the show, Enochian.
Yeah.
Knowing what it is now, it means something to me. Had I just watched this episode for the first time, it wouldn't have meant anything to me.
Yeah,
it would have just been another another language word. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And it turns out though, the producer's like, well, I don't write this. This guy, Walter, submitted this script and it was so full of crap, you know, that we just had to, I mean, the guy's a whack job and we just had to keep rewriting. What does he say? It's like 90% of it we had to rewrite and then 10% we had to change, you know?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Or then and then 10% we threw out. But he's like, yeah, this guy's he's just a nut job for this stuff.
Right. And they're like, Walter, the PA, who has throughout this episode kept interrupting Dean whenever he's like raiding the crafty table.
Yes. Yes.
He just shows up every now and then. Like, he interjects himself. He's like, "Oh, excuse me," bumps into somebody. He's just kind of
he's always giving Tara's like water or a tea, or so he looks like he's been acting like a PA because he's just been like, there's this and there, here's your water, and just very unassuming. But he's always there. He's always been in these scenes, or behind the scenes. He's always been there.
And then he gives them the original script, and when Sam reads through it, both Sam and Dean are like, hey, this is actually pretty good, but it's also pretty much a manual for summoning ghosts and getting them to do your bidding. So
no, this isn't good. We need to go find Walter.
Here's our motive, because he's pissed at the executives for ruining his movie. Yep. And somewhere along his life, he learned black magic. So here we got
this is our guy.
Bad formula for disaster.
Yep. So we need to go find Walter. So they leave. But producer guy gets called to the set by Walter. So Walter's on the set. Producer guy goes to the set and is like, why couldn't we have just met in my office?
Instead of these crappy fake woods.
These fake woods where people keep getting killed. And so now Walter is kind of bearing his soul. He's like, you ruined my movie. This isn't what I wanted it to be. You've taken all this great stuff and turned it into like dick and fart jokes. And the producer's like, we gotta write what sells, and what you gave us doesn't sell. It won't sell. So this is what it is. That's Hollywood. This is what you signed up for. And Walter doesn't buy it. He doesn't accept it. It's like, then, you're just going to have to pay for all these, for what you've done to me and what you've done to my shows. He wants this revenge. Yeah. And he holds up this,
it's like a talisman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like a circle with a cross through it. And he starts incanting Latin. Mm-hmm. And this ghost appears, the massive head wound Harry shows up and starts to attack
Martin.
And Martin does the whole, scream, take to the camera, which I love that all the men get to turn and scream into the camera, which I love. And the fan has turned back on again. The big effects fan is turned on, and now Martin's being dragged. We never saw Ray physically getting dragged by the ghost. We just saw he just got dragged. Like, we didn't see what was dragging him. It kind of felt like the fan was sucking him into it.
That's what I thought. Because at first I was like, Martin gets pulled into the fan a la Jay, meaning like the fan was like vacuuming him into the fan
instead of blowing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, oh no, it's this ghost guy. So he is like literally dragging Martin by the feet, while Walter is keeps scolding him for taking his movie,
ruining his film. Yeah,
with a look of triumph on his face, like, "Haha, you will get your comeuppance. Hoist it on your own petard," as the trickster would say.
Yes, hoist on your own petard. Yes, exactly.
Dean comes to the literal rescue with the shotgun
of rock salt.
Yes. This was a nice hero shot that they did, because the camera was down below, looking up at Dean, and he did this pose and
yes. And of course, after he shoots the ghost with the rock salt and the ghost disappears, what does Martin say?
He says, "You're one hell of a PA," or something similar to that.
That's exactly what he says. And Walter, though, still needs to get his revenge. Like, Sam is there, Dean is there, and they're like, this is where it ends. We're on to you. Mm-hmm. Time to stop. And Walter, again, doesn't accept it. He's like, no, I have to have my revenge. You two can go. You're not a part of this. Yeah. And he gives them a chance to leave and save themselves.
Yeah. And
but just being the heroes,
no,
they can't. They can't just leave to let, Martin get murdered. So Walter's like, okay, holds up the talisman and starts incanting again for the ghosts to come out. And the wind kicks up inside the studio again.
Yeah, there's
And
earthquakes
now we
happening.
see, right. And the ghost, now 4 ghosts appear. Is it 4? 3?
3, I think it's 3.
3?
I know that,
Okay.
well, it would be 3 because they salted and burned um
The
Elise.
actress.
So,
Yes.
yeah. So
So
there were
3 of
4
the 4.
deaths. She's now put to rest. So now
Okay.
there are 3.
So 3 ghosts show up and start kind of menacingly walk ghost-like
Yep.
towards Martin, Dean, and Sam, but then they kind of flicker and disappear just before Dean would have like shot them with the rock salt.
Yeah, like they're ready.
And
They're like, "Come
yeah,
on, we
we're
we
gonna,
got
yeah,
this."
yeah,
Oh,
they're being all
oh,
butch
oh.
but then the ghosts disappear and they're like, okay, that's new.
Yeah.
That's new. What do we do? And
They
so they take that moment to run. Now that the ghosts have disappeared, they're like, run. And they all run across the set to the cabin,
Yes.
set, slam the door, and they're like reloading the guns and they're breathing hard. They're like, okay, what are we gonna
They make Die Hard references, and
oh
then they
god. Come out
have
to
a
the
few
coast, we'll get
laughs.
together, have a few laughs. But yeah, that's when they happen to look up and they notice that there is no fourth wall
Yeah.
to the cabin. They realize that once again they're on a film set and everything is fake.
Yeah.
And even the cabin doesn't have 4 walls. Literally the fourth wall missing.
Very
I'm
funny.
surprised they didn't actually do like a take to the camera and literally break the
I
fourth
know.
wall.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm glad they didn't. I'm surprised they didn't,
No.
but I'm glad they didn't.
So they were just like, "Oh, come on."
Yeah, right. But now they still can't see the ghosts, so they don't know where they're coming from.
Right. And Sam has this like light bulb moment of like, okay, well, if your cameras maybe pick them up on the dailies, maybe my fancy little cell phone BlackBerry RIP camera can do so.
So as it turns out, Sam is right
Mhm.
that you can actually see the ghosts on the video, and so Sam can see the ghosts and tells Dean where to shoot. You know, over there, blam. Over there,
Yeah.
blam.
Yeah.
You know, and then takes the phone and hands it to the producer guy. He's like, "You get it? You understand how this works?" And the
Yeah.
guy's like, "Yeah, okay, we get it." So Sam leaves Dean and Martin to
Play
shoot
this little
ghosts.
video game. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And he goes after Walter to confront him.
Yeah.
And Walter has made it outside of, like, he's left everybody to die by ghost inside the studios. He's outside, I guess, running away.
Yeah,
But
I don't know what he's doing, but Sam catches up to him pretty easily, and he's like, in this shot, Sam looks very scary and intimidating because like Walter is so little, or at least the camera's making him look so little, and
oh,
Sam
he
is
was
like
a
this
little guy anyway. Yeah.
big, like a monstrous man, being like, jigs up Walter, and he's just like,
Yes.
no, and then smashes the talisman, on the
talisman.
ground.
And Sam's like, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
I
it's
shouldn't
like,
have done that. But it's the
"Oh, man."
exact same results as in Faith, when
Yeah.
the woman smashed, or not, she didn't smash it, but when the her talisman was smashed and the Reaper turned on her.
Yes, and even
And that's
Sam's
exact
just like,
same.
yeah, he's just like, you kept those ghosts as prisoners. You made them do your bidding, and when they didn't want to, like they were maybe
They
at
were-
rest, I don't know, but you brought them out of hiding, and you
Yep.
made them murder for you. They're not going to
Yep.
be very happy with you. And Walter's not buying it. He's just like, oh yeah, let's see what happens now, and then mid monologue.
Yes. The ghosts start to attack him. We don't see it, but suddenly he's thrown to the ground and he's being torn to shreds.
Yeah, his back like starts like bleeding from
Bleeding.
various wounds, and
Yep.
Martin and Dean, who have then shown up in the middle of this, because I guess the ghosts, like once the talisman was
Disappeared,
smashed,
yeah.
the ghosts were gone. So then they came up to join the party. Martin pulls the cell phone out, to see like what am I
what's
looking
happening?
at? And here's
Yep.
all 3 ghosts literally digging into Walter's back.
Yep. Killing him.
Yeah, and Martin just
Yep.
kind of puts the phone back down. He's like,
Like,
okay.
like maybe I didn't need to see
Yeah.
that. The next day, Sam is, and I'm assuming Sam's looking for Dean because he's walking by all the trailers, all the artist trailers.
Well,
And
no,
one
he's
of
just
them-
like sitting there with Martin because they're shooting pretty much exactly what happened between all
God.
of them. Like,
Forgot
they've
about
changed the script entirely, where, like, the friend is using the cell phone to look for the ghosts. And she's like, "It's there!" And then he shoots.
that.
"No,
Oh,
it's
that's right.
there!" He shoots. Like, wow,
Ugh.
how can these cameras pick it up? It's like, well, I don't know. Maybe it's like the electromagneticity. He's literally using his
Exactly
real
what
life
just happened.
experience, what he just went through, for a
Yep.
crappy B movie.
Right. And then Sam calls him out on that.
Yeah,
He's like,
Sam's just like, really, dude, that's what you're gonna do with this new knowledge that you have
you learned
is
that there's an afterlife and this is what you do with it. And the
Yeah.
guy's like, yeah, you got to jazz up the script or whatever. Yeah, I forgot about that. I think I wanted to. Oh yeah, wait. I said back on set filming using all the stuff that Sam and Dean just did. That was that's how I looked at that scene. I think I just wanted to walk away from that because I think I was
Right.
just disgusted as
It's
Sam
like,
was.
oh,
I was
really?
just like,
Yeah, and he
oh
does. He just
God.
kind of like rolls his eyes. It's like, oh god, okay,
Ugh.
fine. Goes to look for Dean. Notices one of the trailers cartoonishly rocking
Yes.
back and forth.
And then out pops Dean. It's like the door of the trailer opens, almost hits Sam, and out pops Dean, like putting on his clothes,
Yeah.
like still kind of straightening his clothes out and stuff like that. There's an outtake here I just want to point out. There was a couple that I didn't say because they weren't worth
Yeah.
it, but in this outtake where Dean is stepping down the steps of this trailer, Jensen slipped and fell. So he's coming down the stairs and you just see him foop and he falls out of frame. And then he pops right back up again and you hear everybody on set around him going, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And Jensen's response is, "I'm like a cat. I always end up on all fours." And then somebody behind him yells, "You're one hell of a PA."
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you see he's like doing his cocky,
Oh,
putting on his
God.
clothes thing, just and he falls down the stairs. Pretty
Oh boy.
one hell of a PA. And I never knew what that meant when I watched the outtakes. Now that I've seen the episode, I'm
Oh.
like, I get it. Because the next thing you see is Tara comes out with
Yeah.
putting on a bathrobe or whatever.
Yeah.
And she says to Dean as he's leaving, "You're one hell of a PA." And good for her.
And then still
But
gets to steal from Crafty because I think he
grab
takes
a
like
burrito.
burrito.
Yeah. Again, Dean eats his way through an entire episode.
Yep.
So the boys are doing a walk away this time.
Yeah.
And they're walking off into the sunset, which they would normally do. But it turns out it's a set. It's just
Yeah.
a backdrop.
It's a
And the
backdrop.
backdrop is rolled out of the way to reveal a sunset, but it's a real life sunset. And it's kind of rainy
Smoggy
and cloudy,
and yeah,
smoky.
it's very rainy.
Yes. And as they're walking away, Dean says, "God, I love this town," which I thought was a Ghostbusters reference, but somebody else said it was a different movie reference. Because at the very end of Ghostbusters, Ernest, but it's the last thing that's said in the movie, goes, "I love this town," and then the Ghostbusters music
right.
starts up.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought this was. But somebody, I forgot who, said it was another movie, and I didn't write down what it was because I wanted it to be Ghostbusters. So.
Okay.
Boom. Meta.
Yes. The first of many to come.
Many. But this one was just like chocked full.
And it was a huge jump from everything that
from
they've
the
done
heart
thus
wrench
far.
from Heart.
Oh yes, especially from Heart, but also from just everything that they've ever done yet.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of sets the stage, so to speak, for the future of Supernatural.
Well, yes. And this, I think this just really shows that the writing teams know their actors, the actors know the writers, the producers, like the Supernatural team, really, they know each other. And so they're comfortable with doing things like that without it being, like you said, the studios said, we knew that you were talking about us, but it was still pretty funny.
Yeah.
That it's not them jabbing them to be like, negatively. It was a, familiar ribbing, so to speak.
And they were all making fun of each other because the guy who plays Jay, kind of jerk producer who just talks behind everybody's back.
Yeah. Kicking ass, taking names.
Yeah, they were making fun of Bobby because behind whenever producer Jay was like not in a scene, he was practicing like golf swings.
Right.
Apparently,
Right.
Bobby Singer or Robert Singer does that when
Does
he's in
that?
between
No.
scenes. Yeah.
I thought I was like, who is this guy? But okay, that's funny because yes, every time he was just standing behind the chairs while the scenes were going on, he was golfing. He was
Yeah.
doing his golf swing. Oh, that's funny. I didn't know
Yeah.
that they did that. that it was specific to Bobby Singer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder what call out. I guess the call out they did for Jared was Gilmore Girls. The
Yep.
call out for Jensen was the photography behind the scenes.
Maybe, but also it could have been the food because I have like a little. There's a mini Q&A that somebody did with the catering company who does the craft services for Supernatural.
Stop.
It's
Really?
the company is called Green Machine Catering, and the guy was Jason Robbins. And here it's just three questions. How many people do you feed on an average day in Supernatural? 145. What's the greatest number of people you fed on a Supernatural shoot? Just over 300. What do Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki like to eat? Candied salmon, bleh, plain chicken breast and salad, but most of all, spicy Tex-Mex. So there's your burritos and taquitos and a Philly cheesesteak in there just because.
Just threw that in because it was fun to say.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember reading that when it came to the eating habits on Supernatural, that Jensen was actually more the health nut than Jared was overall.
Mm-hmm.
Overall. And then because I also remember seeing some of the like early morning behind the scenes stuff when they would be getting up super early to go to the makeup trailers.
Yeah.
And there would just be candy everywhere, like gummy worms and stuff like that. And it was Jared who was like, eating candy. I never saw Jensen eating, but I was like, well, it's probably because he has to eat on set all day long.
Yeah.
I remember I worked on this one film where one of the girls running Crafty was so proud of herself that she got these, she called them like it was bistro sandwich bread. And she was so excited that she had this like high-end, bread for these sandwiches. And she showed them to me and I was like, those are hot dog buns. And she's like, no, bistro sandwich. I was like, that's a hot dog bun.
That's hilarious.
So I'm not saying that she was just not meant for that position. So we'll just say, because especially when the cruise broke and we went to Crafty for lunch, they're like, we need a sandwich. We had these hot dog buns with like, wraps in them or something.
Yeah.
She didn't last long in that position, but I just thought that was pretty funny.
That was Hollywood Babylon for this week. I feel strangely like Kevin Smith is saying that. Because that's what they always say at the end. It's like, that was Hollywood Babylon of this week. Or next week, we will do Folsom Prison Blues. I have not taken a peek at this at all.
Sam and Dean go to prison, I take it?
Yes, that must be their alias for that week.
I have a feeling that their uniforms are given to them, however, and that they do not have to manufacture them.
Right. Must be nice for once. Okay. So also, just a heads up to our faithful listeners, we may or may not be taking a hiatus for just a touch, just because our real lives are getting kind of hectic and busy and theater's happening and it's exciting.
Yay.
But also time
exhausting.
Consuming.
Yes.
So there'll just be a short little break happening at some point. Don't know when, but
we'll let you know.
Yeah. But just catch up on past episodes. So thank you so much for listening to us. Please be sure to follow us, subscribe to us, rate us on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you can find podcasts. And you can find us on social media too. We are at Salt and Burn This Pod on Instagram and Facebook, and at Salt and Burn This on Twitter. That's it for this week.
That's it. Thank you,
We will see
Sammy.
you next week for Folsom Prison Blues. Bye.
Bye.